And so when you understand the philosophy that rich people do the right things, wealthy people own the right things, you are your biggest asset. Now, I will say that. Let's not get it twisted, right? Like, you need to become a person of value to the marketplace to make the money. Yeah, for sure. There's a difference between playing to win and playing not to lose, right? So if people don't believe that you will be able to acquire the skills or the acumen to make the best objective investment choices, then they'll create paths where you'll be forced to do it.
All right, Eric Eve, the Value Maker here with the Code Network. We are at the final stretch here with Biz Boost Week 2025. Super excited, and what better way to close it out? What better way? I have a special guest in the room, George Acheampong. He's the #1 wealth strategist for our melanin people. But let me be clear, top 100 wealth and financial strategists in the country. And I just found out like 5 minutes ago, he has the #1 estate planning firm in the entire country. So before I get into questions, tell us a little bit about who is George?
Who is that? I mean, that's quite the introduction. So one small correction: we have the most estate plans with the #1 estate planning firm in the country.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but who is George?
Yeah,
that's an open-ended question. But I am a father. I've been a financial advisor and wealth manager for 13 years. I'm somebody who has a desire to decrease the wealth gap by $100 billion by helping 100,000 people of color achieve their first or next $1 million in net worth. And just someone who's called to do something greater.
Strong. That's powerful. So now that sounds cool. That's cute, right? We got so many people, us entrepreneurs, we have big goals.
Yeah.
And we hear stuff all the time, these lofty goals, which is great. We have goals at the Code Network.
Yeah. But
you just shared some stuff with me that kind of rattled me. That's why I was stuttering when I started. You said documenting your firm last year has increased your client's net worth $244 million?
Yeah.
And the year before that, $107 million?
110
million. So 2 years ago, $110 million. Last year, $244. That's crazy. Like, what are y'all doing? That we don't hear financial strategists with those kind of numbers. What is y'all doing so special?
So to try to condense it, I have a strategy I like to call the financial freedom flywheel. And so basically it starts off with building your base in your brokerage account with your stock market portfolio. And the way that you build that base is with a strategy I like to call the Burger King investment strategy, right? Okay. And so McDonald's spends millions of dollars a year trying to figure out where they want to put the next McDonald's. Burger King doesn't spend any money deciding where they want to put the next Burger King. Why? Because they just put it in proximity to where the McDonald's is. And so what I tell my clients is it's okay to be a copycat if you copy the right cat. So Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, all the biggest investment institutions, they spend tens of millions of dollars a year on analysts, research, right, portfolio managers, et cetera, to put together these investment vehicles called ETFs, right? ETF is an exchange traded fund. The way I would like to explain it is like your favorite mall, right? Your favorite mall has hundreds of stores. And if any one of the stores or even 5 of the stores close down, the mall is not going to close down. Right. An ETF functions the same way. It has hundreds, sometimes even thousands of different investments inside of it. And if 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 of those investments aren't performing well, the ETF is still going to be okay. So we start with the base of having globally diversified ETFs, right? What most people don't know is it's public information that you can see every single investment that's inside of that ETF. And that's where it gets interesting. It's like, okay, cool. Well, same way you can go into a mall and you have the little kiosk where they're selling you like lotions and potions and you like put your head down and try to act like you on your phone so they don't bother you, right? There's gonna be some companies in there that aren't doing well, right? Just like there's some companies in the mall that some stores are doing better than others. And so when you look inside of the ETF, you get to see like, oh, Apple's in here or Amazon's in here or whatever. And so you can start to kind of ascertain like what are the investments that are holding most of the weight inside of this ETF, even though the ETF might be doing 10, 12, 20%. So where it gets interesting is you can, well, actually, I'll give a little cheat code. You can go to ChatGPT, right? If you don't have a financial advisor, right? You can go to ChatGPT and say, hey, look, can you analyze the top 5 to 10 holdings inside of this ETF and give me research bullet points on each one of them? Why would I tell you to do that? Because Now what you can do is take the total amount of money that you have invested, and maybe 70% of it you put it into the ETF because you're not a professional expert, so you want to copy the right cat. But 30%, you can then invest in some of those individual companies that are doing really well. Because now you're going to have an outsized performance because you have the base that's globally diversified, but you double down on the winners. Does that make sense?
Strong, yeah, strong.
Right. And so that's why we've been able to, outperform the market, for the past, 6, 7, 8 years. And this is all documented and verified, obviously. And so that's part one, right? So that's the first thing we do. The next thing we do is we say, okay, cool. Well, if our goal is to retire faster, how do we get there, right? And so what we do is we say, all right, well, we have this asset base that we've created, but now we've identified this real estate property that we want to invest in, or we've identified this cash flow producing business that we want to acquire. Everybody's talking about acquiring business these days, right? You only have really 3 options to go get that next asset. You can either take the money from your bank account if you have it. You could sell some of your investments that are performing well, or what most people don't know is you can actually borrow against that particular portfolio, right? Why is that powerful? Because the IRS does not consider borrowed money as income. So when you borrow the money, there's no taxes are going to happen, right? So now you get access to the money as if you would have sold the investment, but you get access to the money without selling it. So no capital gains tax, right? And on top of that, the IRS will allow you to deduct the loan interest on the money that you borrow, right? So you get to get a tax deduction on the money that you borrow, and you don't have to sell your investments, and you get to keep your investments growing and thriving while you get access to capital that allow you to go buy another investment, right?
Wow.
And that's about, so I'll pause
wow,
there.
no,
Okay.
we stop right now. People just got some crazy value. Okay, let's move on. Oh man, George, I got so many questions for you, man. Especially after our conversation now. You done threw off my whole line of questioning after you just told me all the things you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of entrepreneurs. We work with entrepreneurs from all over the country doing extremely well, and they're making good money, but they're not becoming wealthy. What separates people who become wealthy? Like what are like the practices that wealthy people have versus the entrepreneur or even the employed person that's making $100,000, $200,000 a year, right? Like, a couple of things.
Well, first thing we got to start with the philosophy, right? Rich people do the right things. Wealthy people own the right things, right?
Whoa, so, can you say that again?
Rich people do the right things. Okay. Wealthy people own the right things,
man.
Right? So entrepreneurs make a lot of active income, right? But if we don't take some of that active income and start to own assets, right? Because let me just put it like this. The whole purpose of investing is not because you're trying to outpace inflation. You don't invest because it's the smart adult thing to do, right? You invest because at some point, whether you knew it rationally or logically or whatever, you have wrapped your head around this idea that I want to live a certain life, right? At some point, I maybe want to become work optional. There's people I want to help. There's things I want to do. And the way for you to do that is to invest your money so that instead of you having to work hard for it, the money can work hard for you, right? That's the reason why we invest. Not like, what is the next hot stock? Is it crypto? Is it AI? It's, do I want to become work optional one day? Not to say that you stop working. You might really enjoy what you do, but you need to have resources that are producing the income so that you don't have to be the one always producing it, right? And so when you understand the philosophy that rich people do the right things, wealthy people own the right things, you are your biggest asset. Now, I will say that. Let's not get it twisted, right? Like, you need to become a person of value to the marketplace to make the money.
Yeah.
Right? Another thing I would say is wealth is made through concentration, but it's preserved through diversification. Right? And what I mean by that is you are the concentrated asset. If you look at the net worth of the richest people in the world, most of their net worth is tied up into the businesses that they built. Right? People will tell you to diversify first, when in reality, you need to become world-class at something first, and then you take the profits from that, and then you invest. Sometimes you have to give up streams to create a waterfall. And people end up like having so many different things going on that they haven't become world-class in one thing. And as a result of it, that's why they're not getting to where they want to go, right? I've been a wealth manager for 13 years. I've done the same thing. And then even within that, I just deepen the way in which I can make money in that same vertical, right? So it's like, okay, we look at our P&L. Where are we sending a lot of money out the door? Okay, we send a lot of money to this bookkeeping firm. Let's buy a bookkeeping firm. It's still in alignment with what we do, right? But we're how do you make your biggest expenses your profit centers, right? And how do you deepen your vertical integration? Not just do a bunch of different things because you can make money doing this and that. How do I make my biggest expenses my profit centers? And even within that, my multiple streams are all vertically integrated, right? And so I think entrepreneurs have to, number one, treat their business like an asset. Well, first, become world-class, treat your business like an asset, and then take some of those profits and then diversify into other assets. Strong. That is the path I think the entrepreneurs have to take.
Oh man, okay. My mind is spinning right now. Mine is absolutely spinning. So I want to know about you.
Sure.
Yeah, I've like I told you earlier, I've read so many books, seminars, finance, and you hear principles. I think Jim Rohn and so many people put it this way: like you take 10%, pay yourself, put another 10% savings, the other 10% charity, right, and then 70% you live off of that, right? I want to know for George. You kind of mentioned something earlier around you spent 65, maybe, I forgot what you said you did 65% of.
Yeah.
What is do you have a personal money strategy? Silly question, right? Do you have a personal money strategy with you? Like, not that you're wealthy, but even when you're come up with wealth, what was your personal money strategy? Like when dollars came in, what did you do with your dollars? Back then, are you doing the same thing now or are you doing something different?
Great question. So the strategy the foundational strategy I recommend for everybody is, because you have strategy for your business and you have strategy for personal. So I'll focus on the personal. So 5 core account types, right? So the first one is your bill account, or what I would call your 30-day money. The reason why I call it 30-day money, these are all your past choices. In the past, you already committed to a lease or a mortgage. You already committed to a car payment. You already committed to these things so you need to know 30 days in advance where that money's coming from. You already committed to it, right? And so you want to have one bucket of money that just is allocated for that. Then you have your variable expenses, which is, let's call it your present choices, or your 7-day money, right? Entertainment, dining out, anything that can vary. This is where you have the most opportunity in terms of just like how you navigate them. Because the bills are the bills, right? Unless you just decide to cut or move or cut back. So your present choices, so cut out that DoorDash or whatever it is. Like these are the areas of opportunity where you have to kind of like make some changes. Then you have your emergency fund, obviously. And that's if you, lose your primary income source and you need 6 to 12 months of your living expenses. Now, personally, I don't have that money in a bank account anymore. I used to, but now I have the money in an investment account. Why? Because if it's a true emergency, I can borrow against it and pay myself back. So I get to take advantage of the market gains in absence of any emergency. And then if it doesn't happen, great, my money's being invested. If it does happen, borrow against it and then pay myself back, right? So you have your emergency fund. Then you have your emergency reserves. One of the biggest pushbacks I used to get from clients working with them is like, it's hard to save because something always comes up, right? I'll say, okay, that's fair. Why don't we always plan for it? We don't know exactly how much it's going to cost. We don't always know what it's going to be or when it's going to happen. But if we know something's going to happen, let's plan for it. We know at some point you're probably going to have a medical bill deductible this year. We know at some point you're going to have vehicle taxes. We know like these things are not monthly recurring expenses, but they're going to come up. We know you're going to want to spend money on Christmas. And so allocating a portion of your money, predetermining what that's going to be for that. And then the last but not least is your major expenses. So major expenses are anything that's like bigger than just a shopping budget, right? Just like, okay, well, each month you might have a few $100s or whatever, however much money you allocate towards it, just towards general shopping. You go to the mall, order something online. But if you know, like, you need a new computer or you need new appliances for the house or just something that's major, or taking a big trip, a 2-week trip, allocating money for those expenses so that you can plan for. Because I think the issue is when you don't have a plan, you feel guilty. Like I tell my clients all the time, like, you don't have to feel guilty for doing what you want to do. You just need to have a plan for it, right? You just need to have a plan for like, I plan to spend $5,000 to go to Cape Town or whatever it is, right? Like just have a plan for it. And if it makes sense relative to your cash flow goals. Because what happens is when you have 1 or 2 accounts and all the money's hitting that account, you'll be in delusion, think you have more money than you really do. And you're wondering why at the end of the month, you're looking like, well, where'd the money go? It's because that money really should have been split up in multiple different ways, right? And it will give you more perspective on how much you actually have for this thing. Like I remember like it was yesterday, in the early years of me being married, I look at my major expense account and I told my wife, I was like, this will determine whether we can go to Maldives or Myrtle Beach, right? It's like whatever the account says objectively, right? And I think the more people can make decisions objectively versus emotionally, that's how they'll be able to get themselves in a better situation financially.
Strong. So with those 4 accounts, let me go a little bit deeper. And maybe it varies from person to person. with those 4 accounts, it was 4,
I think it was
right?
five.
Sorry. Those 5 accounts. Kind of hard for me to interview and take notes. I'm taking it all in, right?
I get it. No worries.
So with those 5 accounts, somebody, like, is there a percentage you should allocate? Or does it matter does it depend on how much you make in a year? Like,
yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. I mean, percentages are usually relative, but I would say that between your variable and your fixed cost, in a perfect world scenario, that makes up a combined total of about, let's call it 60 to 70% combined total, right? And that would give you about 20 to 30% to allocate towards your various savings objectives, right? Me personally, one hack that I have, well, I'll give you 2 hacks. One, any money that I want to invest is ultimately going to get transferred out to another investment account. I put that money in my bill account because then I'm training myself to treat this as a fixed cost that's not optional, right? So I'm looking at all the things that are bills. I'm treating this $500, $1,000, whatever amount of money I have to allocate towards investing. That money is getting transferred from my bill account. Okay. Because psychologically, it's training me like the same way I'm paying the mortgage, the same way I'm paying the credit card bill, like I need to pay myself with the same level of intention, right? The other hack is nicknaming those accounts, right? So it's a lot harder, it's a lot easier to transfer money from savings account ending in 5078 versus my freedom fund, right? So what are your goals? What are the things that matter to you? And earmark those accounts accordingly so that you have a visual reminder of why you're doing it. So I think the issue is a lot of times, like, we make decisions because like it's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. It's the adult thing to do versus really connecting the dots on the why. And I might have mentioned this to you when we met the other week, but one of the first conferences I went to, she told us a story of in 2011, 1 billion drill bits were sold, right? And nobody cared about the drill bits, right? Let's just assume they were used to hang up the artwork and the TVs and stuff in the studio. Nobody cares about the artwork or the TVs in the studio. What they care about is the feeling that they get when they walk in the room where the artwork is hung. So when you think about your money, it's like, okay, I don't care about having $1 million in my account. I don't care if it's in a Roth IRA or a 401k or a 403b. What I care about is at some point I've thought about who I'm going to help, the places I'm going to go, the life I'm going to live, and that's what we need to latch onto, right? Mm-hmm. Because that is what's going to keep you going, right? Not that I'm going to stare at my bank account that has $1 million in it. Right. It's this number just happens to be associated with this ideal life that I'm marching towards, the why, so to speak, right?
Very good. So you mentioned something, and it probably went over a lot of people's heads. I don't put money in my bank account. I've heard a lot of wealth people say this. I put an investment account. Like, what exactly is that? Like, is it at Bank of America, Wells Fargo, or is it a totally different building where you put your money? Like, when you say I don't put it in bank accounts, investment account, like
yeah. I mean, so there's investment accounts. Just they're called brokerage accounts, right? You can get them at a bank. I wouldn't recommend getting them at a bank because they're the most antiquated versions. But like places like M1 Finance, which is an online brokerage, Fidelity, Charles Schwab. Basically, most investment accounts are earmarked for certain purposes. Like a traditional IRA is for retirement. Roth IRA is for retirement, right? A brokerage account allows you to invest whatever you want to invest, however much you want to invest. And there's no retirement provisions, right? So you can invest as little or as much as you want to invest. And in addition to that, it gives you borrowing provisions where you can borrow against the value of that account. So no different if you had a house that appreciated in value, you go to the bank, they'll give you a home equity line of credit. It's the same way you can go to Charles Schwab and say, hey, I have $200,000 invested. Can I get an equity line of credit for half of it, $100,000? Sure. Why would they give it to you? Because you have equity. If you were to not pay them back the $100,000, they can literally see $200,000 that they have access to, that they can take the money, they can sell it out of your investments and get the money that they are entitled to, right? Wow. So yeah, you can borrow against the value of your portfolio. Now, the reason why that's powerful is the money is invested during that time period, right? So the whole game is just a game of what I call interest rate arbitrage, right? So if I have money invested in an investment account, let's just say that's doing 12% conservatively, because ours do substantially better than that. Let's just say it's 12%, right? And I borrow 50%, borrow against. The key distinction is against, meaning your account value is going to stay the same. You're not taking the money from the account. You're getting a separate line of credit based upon the value of the account. That's a key distinction, okay? So you get the line of credit, and then let's say they charge you 5% interest on that line of credit. Well, even just between that, there's already a spread between what you're earning on the portfolio and what it's costing you to borrow the money. But where it really makes sense is you're going to take that borrowed money to then go buy another investment. It's also going to have its own separate ROI or its own separate cash flow, right? So now it's just a game of interest rate arbitrage. And on top of that, your total net ROI is going to be higher. Why? Because when you're borrowing the money, you're not paying taxes, right? So a lot of times when people talk about day trading, right, they're like, oh, day trading, I'm doing cool. And I know how I can trade with the best of them. But when you trade, right, you're paying short-term capital gains tax. So if we're just looking at dollars in versus dollars out, right, I don't care if you got a 50% win if you're going to be paying 37% in taxes, right? So it's understanding the whole picture and how do I maximize the ROI and how do I avoid paying Uncle Sam while building more wealth at the same time.
Strong. Wow, man, you giving away some golden nuggets. I know people I'll pay you a lot of money to get that information.
One of my mentors told me, two things he told me. He said, the only thing people can take from me is notes. First thing he said. He said, the second thing he said is when you operate from a place of abundance, right? It's like, and you are who you say you are, you should be able to give away as much information as freely as possible.
Strong. Man, did y'all get that audience? Speaking, we have people watching live actually. So I don't know if I'm gonna get to y'all, but you can put your questions. They'll come to me on my screen here if you have questions. But let's move along here. Great, man. Great information. I forgot to thank you when we started. Thank you for being here,
sure,
man.
Absolutely.
So appreciate you being here.
Glad to be here, brother.
So
let me just commend you, right? Because just for those who don't know, so we ran into each other right at daycare, dropping our kids off, and I do a lot of speaking engagements every year. Just by travel, just by commitment, I end up turning down most of them for only just because of availability. But if you wouldn't have, reached out, made the connection, and he was persistent too, because I was in the middle of like a really busy travel.
Almost gave up. This dude, he too big, man.
It wasn't even that. I just was traveling a lot. So thank you for being persistent and us making this connection for sure.
You got it, man. Yeah, we're blessing a lot of people today.
Yeah.
All right, so great information. Now let's switch gears to some other folks. There are people watching and who will watch this later, and they really want to be wealthy. Like they really want to be wealthy.
Yeah.
They have no context. They don't know who to talk to. The first thing they'll see anything close to acquiring wealth is what you're sharing right now. For the person who's just starting, all right, maybe I just have a job. I'm making 70,000 a year. Maybe I have a job making 80,000 a year, but my business bringing another 40. I'm making 120. Where do I start? Like, what is the basic things I could do just to get started before I get into all this stuff you just said that kind of went over some people's head?
Yeah. I think this is a twofold answer, right? But I think the first part, and it may be unconventional to say, but I think the first part is, and I said it earlier, right? Wealth is made through concentration, it's preserved through diversification. So a lot of times people ask me, like, if I only have $100 to invest, where should I invest? I say, you should invest, like, figure out how can I get to a place where I can have more than $100 to invest. And I don't say that to be like rude or cliche, but it's like people grossly underestimate. Like, I'll put it like this. Mark Zuckerberg was paying 9-figure, let's put it in context, 9-figure signing bonuses to people who were really great in the AI space. Why? Because AI is what's most important right now, right? So I say that to say, you got to ask yourself, like, what are in-demand skills and how can I acquire them, right? Right. The most underutilized or forgotten asset class is intellectual property, right? Like, how can I acquire enough intellectual property to become a person of value, right? So that the marketplace can do nothing but pay me what I'm worth. And that's going to give me all the resources I need to invest, right? So it's like, forget the ROI, like forget trying to chase 100% returns. If you just have enough money to invest, you can invest, which is why wealth is preserved through diversification. It's like you take the risk on betting on you. You don't got to take the risk on trying to get a hot stock to go to 3,000%. That's where people go wrong. Take the risk on yourself. That's the most controllable asset you have. But the problem is, you are the only person who has heard 100% of the lies that you told yourself, right? And so when you wake up and you say, I'm going to work out, I'm going to work on my business this day, or whatever it is, most people will never hear or know that you didn't do what you said you were going to do, right? And because of that, right, you can get away with it. But the only person you're robbing is yourself. And so I truly do believe that the greatest investment that you can make, and not to be cliche, is yourself. And understand, what are these in-demand skills that I can acquire that the marketplace can do nothing but pay me for, right? I have more leads than I have time. We get 13,000 new leads every 60 days, right? And we only work with less than 1,000 people, new people a year, way less than that, a year, right? Because I acquired in-demand skills and I've been doing it for 13 years. I haven't done nothing else for 13 years, right? And so I said to say like that's the cheat code. It's like pick a path, right? And become one of the best. You have to be the best, but become one of the best people in that path. But most people they quit or they don't want to do it, or even worse, they're comparing themselves to other people in their industry who maybe it's their chapter 10 or their chapter 20, and they get discouraged. And one of the things one of my pastors told me, he said, potential, what did he say? He said, comparing yourself to people who you perceive are better than you will paralyze your potential, right? Neutralize your passion. Comparing yourself to people who you believe you're better than will paralyze your potential, right?
That's wrong.
So when you look at somebody who is supposedly farther ahead than you, right? It is neutralizing your passion because like, man, dang, I'm never going to get there, right? They've done it. And you start to slow down, right? Man, if you compare yourself to somebody who you feel like you're better than them or you're further along than them, you start to slow down. It's like, it's almost like watching a sports game and they take their foot off the gas in the fourth quarter because they're up by 20. And at the end, they're scrambling to try to win the game, right? Versus just keeping their foot on the gas, right? So comparison is something that a lot of people do. They rob them of the opportunity to own their lane. So I don't care what anybody, we talked about some other industry peers, and I don't care, respectfully, I don't care what they're doing, not because I don't respect them, but because I have a lane that I got to carve out and what God has called me to do. And that's all I'm focused on. That's it, right? And those are the people that I need to be focused on, not how do I stack up or compare to my peers.
Strong. That's good, man. All right. Man, you saying some stuff that's hitting me, man. Like you punching me in the chest right now. So it's a very, very important concern for many people. Even like I've had this question for many years.
Yeah.
I will hear Kiyosaki say your home is just a liability. Mm-hmm. It's not an asset, which makes sense, right? It's taking money out my account, not put money in my account.
Yeah.
I'll hear say Grant Cardone say that's the dumbest investment you can make the home you live in. Then I hear John Hope Bryant, who's for our people.
Yeah.
Melanin Money, right? Say it is your number one asset. Can you tell us what is your thoughts on that in terms of home ownership? I know so many people, man, we're saving up to buy a home. What's your whole thoughts on that? Yeah. All of it, and like dive deep with it. Like who does it make sense for? Who doesn't it make sense for?
Yeah, for sure. There's a difference between playing to win and playing not to lose, right? So if people don't believe that you will be able to acquire the skills or the acumen to make the best objective investment choices, then they'll create paths where you'll be forced to do it, right? So if you buy a home, right, and you live there for an extended period of time and it's in a halfway decent area, it's going to appreciate in value, right? Now, if we did the math objectively on what you put into the home and all the things, right, is it a good investment? Is it the best investment? It's not, right? And I love John Hope Bryant. It's not the best investment. But if you're coming from a place where this is the most likely investment that you can make relative to your circumstances, then that's also cool. My objective advice is just to be objective. It's like, all right, when I look at the capital outlay, because right now, like I love the house that I'm in. We told you a story about it, right? I love the house I'm in.
I love it too, from afar.
Right? I love the house that I'm in, but I do, by and large, view it as a financial liability, right? But there are qualitative and quantitative goals in life, right? Quantitative is just math. Does it make sense on paper? Qualitative, right, is how does it make you feel, right? And sometimes we have to balance those two things as long as it's not removing the ability of the long-term goal that you make. Like if buying that liability or buying that thing isn't going to derail you from your long-term trajectory, great. But if it is, or this is the only money you have to make the best investment, it's probably not the best investment, right? But for me, all the stuff updates I'm making to my house right now, that doesn't make sense on paper, right? It's not the best use of my money, but qualitatively to see my son being able to enjoy the pool and all the things, like it's a qualitative investment that I can afford to make at this point, but I can still be objective and say it doesn't make the most sense on paper. So I think relative to the resources that you have will determine how, like where your money should be put, right? Like you can't afford to make those types of decisions if that's your only investment.
Very good. Yes. Awesome. Yeah. So I'm going to go, I'm not going to be selfish. I was selfish earlier. I'm not going to be selfish and take up all the question time. I'm going to go to the chat. So we got a question online. When borrowing against your investment account, does your credit score come into play for the interest rate you're charged on the loan when you borrow against yourself?
That is a phenomenal question. And I love that question because this strategy is how you become your own bank. The credit scores matters because the bank has the authority on what they want to lend you. But when your assets are the assets collateralizing the borrowed money, it doesn't matter because it's collateralized by your assets, right? So your credit score does not matter. The moment I deposit the money into my investment account, instantly I can go to the borrow tab and borrow 50% of it immediately. Wow. Instantly. There's no paperwork. And within 48 hours, right, it will be deposited and transferred to my bank account, right? So it's a very powerful strategy because you literally get to become your own bank by collateralizing your own investments. And now I don't have enough time to go super deep on this, but one thing, again, I'll say this. The entire economy is based upon the middleman. Right. And what I mean by that, and y'all probably heard something similar to this before, but like we hear like how Airbnb, doesn't own any houses, or Uber doesn't own any vehicles, right? Or Amazon, outside of when they look at the data and say, oh, we need to start creating that product. But for many years, Amazon didn't own any products, right? They're just a facilitator of these transactions. Bank is the same way. The bank is just a glorified middleman, right? But they're the most powerful institution that exists. They're just a middleman. How does the bank work? I want to go buy. The first and foremost, I deposit my money in the bank, right? They've convinced me that makes sense. Boom. I want to go buy a house, right? I can't buy the house in cash, so I get a mortgage from the bank. Bank's going to charge me 6%, 7%, whatever the going rate for mortgages is these days, right? Cool. Then I'm going to take that money, I'm going to give it to the builder. The builder is going to take the money I just gave him and put it right back in the same bank. Think about it, right? The builder's not just sitting on the cash. He built the house. So the economy is based upon the buyer, the builder, and the broker. Somebody knows how to make the thing. Somebody wants to buy the thing. And there's some type of system or infrastructure in between the two that connects both people. So the question is, how can I become that infrastructure? How can I remove the middleman? Well, we've heard that quote before. Yeah. How do you remove the middleman, right? Wow. And so when you invest your money in a way that allows you to leverage it, you get an opportunity to remove the middleman. Yes, you are being charged interest from the investment institution. However, you've hopefully done the math to, number one, see, okay, my investments are earning 12%. I'm paying 6% on the money I borrow. I went to go buy this cash flow producing real estate property that's then going to pay me 3 times what I owe in loan interest. And you would do the math to determine, okay, I'm just playing the interest rate arbitrage game. That's what the banks are doing, right? They give you the 1% or whatever it is on your savings account. They loan out your money at 6%. They can happily give you the percentage back, right? So learn to play the interest rate arbitrage game by becoming your own bank. So I say all that to say your credit score doesn't matter at all.
Wow, I've never heard it. No, never heard it like that before. I've never heard that before. Yeah. That's mind blowing. That's crazy. Okay, moving along here. All right, I'll go back to the questions in the chat in a moment. So if you all have questions, put them in the chat, and they'll come to me on the screen here. What would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions on acquiring wealth and becoming wealthy? Mm-hmm. All right, what would you and investing?
I would say one of the biggest ones is that retirement has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with assets, right? Nothing to do with age. My sister, I just got back from Portugal. She's 40. She's one of my first clients. She retired. Well, she's 42 today. Today's her birthday. Tell my sister happy birthday.
Happy birthday, sis.
But she's 42 now, but she retired at 40. Traditional retirement age is 65, 67. And so the reason why people think that that retirement is about age is because that's just what we're told. But many people are operating under the 40-40-40 plan. Yeah. Right. And that's where you work 40 hours a week. You do it for 40 years of your life. And if you do everything right, you'll be able to live on $40,000 a year in income. And this is all information that's backed, right? So the 40-hour work week is very well known. We know that's the standard, right? Corporate America work week, right? Now, how did I arrive at the fact that most people work for 40 years of their life, right? So I did research. I saw that the average person by age 25 has some form of gainful employment or income. It might not be their dream job, but by 25, they typically have consistent income and they won't stop working until they retire. And so if you're assuming that they're retiring at 65, that's 40 years. Now, how did I arrive at the last 40 of living on $40,000 a year in income? Well, I'm not sure if your audience has heard anything like this before, but maybe you have. If you invest $400 a month, earning 7% a year, 30 or 40 years, you have $1 million at retirement. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, the truth is, they're not wrong. The problem is that's way too long. And the reason why people are retiring at 65 is because they're listening to this rhetoric. But again, it still all circles back to, let me answer this first. I don't want to lose people. So if you invest $400 a month, earning 7% a year, right? You have $1 million at retirement, but you don't want to run out of the money, right? So there's a rule in place called the 4% rule that says if you don't want to run out of money, you can safely withdraw 4% of your portfolio value and you likely won't run out. Now, it doesn't say that that 4% is going to be enough to cover your lifestyle. It just says you won't run out of whatever you have if you only withdraw 4%. So what's 4% of $1 million?
40?
40,000.
40,000.
Exactly, right? Hence the 40-40-40 plan, right? And so the biggest myth is that you have to wait that long to retire. Now, how do we unpack that? Well, first things first, if I can afford to invest more than $400 a month and I follow just this path, then naturally I can cut the timeline in half. Well, how am I going to afford to invest $400 a month? Goes back to what I said 20 minutes ago, right? Or 10 minutes ago, whatever it was. Like, wealth is made through concentration. It's preserved through diversification. You have to become a person of value to have more resources to allocate. Then we can get into the fancy strategies of borrowing against the portfolio, buying the cash flow producing assets, right? But the biggest myth is that people think that retirement is based on age. Now, the thing that I'm not saying is that yes, you can retire early, right? If you invest or allocate more money, whatever the case may be. But just because you're 65 also doesn't automatically mean you get to retire. You have to have the resources.
Right.
That's the other part, right? We're gone are the days where we get these guaranteed pensions or Social Security is enough. And so it's like, that's the other part people are not getting. It's like, if you're not paying attention, if you're not doing this stuff right now, just when you wake up and you're 60, 65, people aren't Walmart greeters by choice. I don't care what they tell you. There's plenty of other ways to spend your time in retirement.
Right.
And I just want to interact with people. No, you need the money.
Yep.
Respectfully. Yep. Right. And we have to have those tough conversations because if we don't, we're going to look up, right? And we're going to not have the resources we need and we're still going to have to work. Right. And those are the things we have to think about.
Wow. Strong. So simple question. So you talked about the person who needs to become, hey, I have $100 to invest. Mm-hmm. What should I do? Invest it to you. All right. So the person who does, like, what's a good number to start off with? Like if I came to you, I'm ready to hire you right now. How much should I have?
Well, let me also say this. I don't want to despise small beginnings. By no means am I saying that if you have 100 that you shouldn't start the practice of investing. That's not what I'm saying, right? What I'm saying is if you have limited resources to invest, then that should spark the reality that I need to start thinking about investing, right? Now, to answer your question about how much does someone have, here's what I want to say just to kind of level the playing field, right? So if I were to bring up, matter of fact, it's relevant to you, pizza. You're talking about the pizza from Buffalo that you love, right? Cool. So if I were to come here with that pizza, the way you order it from the place that you get it from, and I offer you a slice or two, is that slice or two going to taste any less good than the other slices of the pizza? If it's assuming it was all made together. Oh, right. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So same thing. So if I'm investing, just because I can't afford to invest $1,000, I can only invest $200, right? Investment grows on a percentage basis, right? So it's like, okay, just because it's 200, but that the market went up 10, 20%, relative to what you were able to invest, it still went up 10, 20%. It just doesn't feel like as much because you don't have as much money invested. So I don't want people to get discouraged like yo, them two slices was fire, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's not get it twisted, right? Would I have wanted the whole pizza? Maybe. So I say that to say there is no magic dollar amount. Now,
there gotta be a minimum.
Well, I guess you said for me if they're coming to work with us.
Yeah, like I'm telling people who want to become wealthy. Like, all right, George.
Everybody starts somewhere. So I mean, you don't have to work with my firm to start the process of becoming wealthy. I don't want to discourage people. I want people to know like you can start where you are. Now, if you were to, when does it make sense? I think the question you're asking, if you were to hire a financial advisor, maybe when does it make sense to hire a financial advisor?
Yeah.
Right. I think that's the question you're asking. So if and all advisors aren't created equal. No shade, but. Honestly, I would say at about if you're making about $150,000 a year, I think it can make sense to hire some level of financial advisor.
Okay.
Right, at least $150,000 a year.
Okay.
I think anything before that, I think there's some foundational things that you can address, some DIY things that you can address, and of course, again, focusing on getting your income up to a certain threshold. Again, not to discourage anybody that's below that threshold, but I think at that point it can make sense because hiring advisors costs money, so you have to factor that into it. Now, when our clients work with us, they're happy to pay us because they make more money off of us than they pay us, right? They essentially are working with us for free. Like we have clients where we save them $500,000 in taxes in a year or, whatever the case may be. So it's like, it has to make sense for you, right? And us. And I think there's that 150 is kind of that floor, in my opinion. At least for our firm. It might be different for other firms.
Okay.
I would say.
So let me ask you this. Great answer. So you're getting 13,000 clients. not clients, leads every other month.
Yep.
Working with less than 1,000 a year. Clearly, everybody cannot go to you.
Sure.
So what should somebody, they listen and say, okay, Eric, George, I hear you. Maybe I can't work with Melanin Money right now, but I'm good. I'm making 150. I'm making 200. Things are great. What should they look for in the firm before they hire them? What pre-qualifications? Yeah. What questions should they ask that financial planner?
But the first thing I would say is don't count yourself out. Like if you are making 150, 200, comment the word advisor on any one of my posts on social media and apply, and we'll see. That's the first thing I would say, right? Shameless plug, right? Now, for some reason, if the doors are closed or we're not accepting new clients, what you should look for is the advisor a fiduciary? And all that means, it's a fancy way of saying, do they have a legal obligation to do what's in your best interest, right? And you would think that would be the standard, right? But it's not, right? So in the financial services industry, you have a suitability clause and you have fiduciary. Suitability means you have the money in a bank account, I put you in some mutual funds, but let's just say the mutual funds, like they had heavy expense ratios, but maybe you're earning 5, 6, 7%, right? Cool. Technically speaking, that was a better situation than it was when it was in the bank account, right? Now, from a fiduciary standpoint, if I can invest you in globally diversified ETFs that have lower expense ratios that might perform at 12%, that's a better scenario, right? And so I have a legal obligation to put you in what is the best possible outcome for you, not just something that might line my pockets. So because a lot of advisors that operate under the suitability clause, they earn commissions on certain products that benefit them, and it might not necessarily be the best product for you. The best analogy I can give you is if you go into a doctor's office and the only way they get paid is if they prescribe you a medication, right? You might go in, you might have a cold. You might just truly just need to rest. But if the only way they're going to get paid is if they prescribe you something, what they prescribe you might not kill you, but it might not be what you need, right? So advisors who earn commissions, like we're a fee for service. We charge a flat fee for our advisory service, right? But if an advisor earns commission, they're going to be incentivized to offer certain products that may or may not be in your best interest. Wow. We get a lot of our referrals, or a lot of our clients come from just second opinions. It's like somebody tried to sell this big life insurance policy that wasn't designed the right way, and I look at it and I'm like, no, you should have never got that, right? But I can tell them that because I'm getting paid for my objective advice, not for the commission I'm going to get for the product that I recommend.
Wow, man, did y'all catch that? Oh my goodness. Speaking of insurance, it's my next question. How do one determine if they should get term, whole, and I think it's another one, universal, something like that? Yeah. Like, I know you can't dive deeply. We only have 8 minutes left, but
sure.
How do you determine like which is the best fit for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for the benefit of the audience, maybe not know the differences, right? We can just do permanent and term because universal is a derivative of permanent insurance to a degree. So permanent insurance, whole life insurance, just like it sounds, you get it and it can last your whole life, right? Insurance, generally speaking, is based upon your age, and life insurance is based upon your age and your health. So the younger you are, the healthier you are, the cheaper it is. Whole life, however, is going to be more expensive than term because term lasts for a term. So it can last for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever the case may be. And at the end of that term, then that insurance will expire. So who should get what? If you are younger and you are in the early phases of your wealth building and you're not a high income earner, you should get something called renewable convertible term. What that will do is it'll allow you to get cheaper insurance coverage. You probably can get over $1 million for less than $20 a month or something, maybe even cheaper than that, right? But as you get older, as you start making more money, you can convert that term policy into a permanent policy over time. Now, why do you want to have a permanent policy ultimately? Is because it's going to be the vehicle for liquidity during estate planning, right? So not to get too deep here, but let's say that you follow the strategy I talked about by buying assets, borrowing against them, right? The part that I haven't said is buy, borrow, die, right? So you buy investments, you borrow against them to do whatever you want to do. You still have an outstanding loan on them. At some point, you want to pay it off. When you die, what's going to pay it off? The life insurance, right? So you do want to have life insurance at death. And if you have a term policy, right, it might expire before you die, right?
Wow.
So the whole life policy will create the liquidity to pay off the debt. And then if your assets are owned by your trust, your kids are going to get something called a step up in basis, meaning they're going to inherit the assets at the market value, not when you bought them. Because if they inherit it at the value you bought them, then you have to pay the difference of what the asset was when they got it versus what it is now, and you didn't have to pay taxes on that. But if the assets are owned in the trust, they get a step up in basis, and then they're going to own the assets free and clear because you got the life insurance that's going to pay out the debt.
Y'all, are y'all getting this? Like, Are y'all getting this? This is man. You are dropping some sauce, bro. Wow. Last question, because we could be here all night. So walk me through. Like, give us a visual.
Sure.
So I saw one of your ads. You responded. Maybe it's a call, whatever. I end up qualifying to be a client of your firm. Melanin Money, best firm out there in the country. I pay my fee. What's happening? First year, like give us a visual of what's happening in that first year.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we break it down, and most of this will probably happen in the first 6 months, but let's break it down. So first step is cash flow optimization, right? If we don't know where every dollar is going and what it's doing, like we're not going to know where and how to allocate it, right? So first thing is we want to get crystal clear on where every dollar is going. 9 times out of 10, if I ask somebody, how much money did you spend last month to the dollar? No one's going to know the exact dollar amount. Nobody. I will. Right? But almost nobody is going to know the exact dollar amount. Why is that a problem? Because inevitably, some things are probably slipping through the cracks that could be used for the goal of wealth building. So first thing we want to do is we want to get clear. And we want to make sure that, are you in agreement with these expenses? Does this all make sense? Did you forget about that subscription? Like, we want to get really clear on where every dollar is going so we can optimize the cash flow. And that's going to give us the basis of the resources that we will then have to build upon. After cash flow optimization, then it's tax strategy. Right, most people are overpaying in taxes. Most of our clients pay little to no taxes through the strategy that we deploy legally, obviously. And so we do that as step 2 because we don't want to put more money into a bucket that has a hole in it. Right? If you don't know where every dollar is going and we get you all this money back from taxes and you're paying less money, all you're going to do is have more money fall through the cracks. Right? So once we have the cash flow optimization plan in place, we then recapture unnecessary money that you're paying in taxes to put that money back into your cash flow plan. Then we focus on figuring out what your freedom number is through retirement and financial independence. So, okay, we understand the available resources that we have. We've recaptured what we know. Now we know exactly how much we can allocate towards our financial freedom and independence target. And then based upon our risk profile and our goals, we can determine what that plan looks like, right? What are we going to be investing in? Why are we going to be investing in it, et cetera, et cetera. Then we move on to the risk management phase, right? So that's the proper life insurance, health insurance, disability insurance, which is one that people often sleep on. All right, we have insurance on our phone. We have insurance on our house. We have insurance on everything. But what is your insurance on your income? What happens if you get hurt or sick and can't work? Disability insurance is what covers that, right? So making sure you understand how that works. And so we just do a comprehensive review over all of the things that could disrupt this wealth building plan and make sure that we plug those holes. And then last but not least is the kind of the generational wealth building, generational wealth plan piece. And that's like, okay, cool. How do we want to transition these assets on to the next generation, right? Everybody says they want to build generational wealth, but they're unwilling to hold assets for a generation, right? So how do we, right? And so we got to make sure that we're setting up the plan to make that happen. And that's kind of the 5-step initial process. And then from there, we just iterate as time goes on. Your business grew, you sold a business, you bought a business, you had a kid, you got married, and all those as those life events continue to happen, we just evolve and iterate the plan. What I often tell people is a financial plan isn't worth much more than the paper that it's written on. Financial planning is where the magic happens, right? Because things will continue to evolve, continue to change. And that's why you got to have an advisor to work with you for the foreseeable future.
Love it, man. I'm going to ask one last question. This is not a value question at all. I was not going to ask this question, but I'm compelled to do it because I'm so inspired, man. I'm so inspired by you. We're only a year apart, and just what you've been able to accomplish. When we met, I looked you up, and I'm like, wow, this guy is the real deal. So I asked you a question downstairs. You got to share this with our audience. I asked you, because in fact, we were coming from lunch to finish a 3-day fast. Yeah. I'm starving. We coming in from lunch. Didn't know you was going to pull up at the same time. I'm looking at the car you pulled up in. I'm like, yeah, that car is like, I don't know, 8 of my homes.
Not quite.
Right? And I see the lifestyle on social media. Yeah. When is it that you knew that you made it?
Okay. For those who don't know me, I think it is important to give a little preliminary context before I answer this question. So, I didn't have a car, or I was a 1-car household rather. That was a paid off car for the most part for 6 years, right? So what people don't know, when they see the thing, people will see the fruits, but won't understand the roots that you dug to support the tree that can hold those fruits.
Cool. Say that one more time,
right?
Man.
People will see the fruits of the tree that you have, but they don't understand the depths of the roots that you dug to support that, right? So I say that to say, I've lived below my means for a very long time. And I still do, substantially, right? But there was a long period of time where I didn't buy anything for what it's worth. I could have bought multiple cars, multiple homes, whatever the case may be. But I was like, you know what? I want to dig these roots. I want to practice what I preach. And I want to show people that, all that will be there when you make it, right? So now that being said, now fast forward several years later, I do have a couple of nice things. And one of them being my house. And so I moved to Dallas, Texas this month last year.
Shout out to Dallas.
This month last year from Charlotte, North Carolina. And then last November, I took my team to a leadership retreat in Turks and Caicos. And, typically on any vacation, regardless of who you are, you're trying to find the nicest hotel, the nicest villa, or just to really get that escape, to just, soak it up, maybe for aspirational, motivational purposes, like, so when you go back, you can go harder, whatever the case may be, right? And if somebody would have asked me the question you just asked me a year and a month ago, I wouldn't have had an answer. It wasn't until this moment. So I got to the villa, opened the door, looked around, and this is a really nice villa, and I really thought it was a really amazing place. But I said to myself, and this is not from an place of arrogance or anything like that, I was like, my house is better. And but the aha moment was, most people go on vacation for a temporary escape, and when I've created a permanent one, I would rather be home than in Turks and Caicos.
Strong.
And that is when I knew that I made it, right? Because it was just like, I don't need to go on vacation anymore. I've created it because of the work that I've done, because of the roots that I've dug, right? And so, and I thought it was important to get that context, because again, it's like, don't look at the chapter 20. Don't look at the fruits. Look at the roots. Look at how many years I exercised delayed gratification, that I did not make those purchases, where I invested the majority of my income, reinvested most of my money into my business. Look at that. Don't look at what you see now. I think it's important. I always want to get that context. My secondary mission, besides closing the wealth gap by $100 billion, is bridging the gap between the oversimplification of success and limiting beliefs. And I think that bridge is context. Because what happens is you'll see people online who have the nice cars or have the nice houses, and they'll oversimplify the success. Well, I made $100,000 a month, and I did this and I did that. And it's like, what happens is now a person, they get called scammer, like they're not really doing it. Why? Why though? The reason is because a person who's not there can't conceptualize how that's possible. And so they believe that you're a scammer because they have limiting beliefs. But if you give that person the context to say, oh, well, I've been doing this for this amount of years. I have a team of 20 people. I failed this many times. Like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense then, right? And so now it's like, even the video when I first posted the car, I did a video on YouTube, I'll send it to you, that explained how the market paid for the Maybach, right? So I explained how every dollar that was supposed to go in a car payment, car insurance, et cetera, for 7 years, I invested the money, right? And then ultimately, after that period of time in delayed gratification, the market was able to buy it to me. And then, of course, with my own strategy, I didn't take the cash out my investments. Of course I didn't, right? And so that I can leave some meat on the bone, I'll let them watch the video and how I break down what I did, right? But you got to give people the context, because if not, the people who have limiting beliefs will never be able to shatter those limiting beliefs, right? And it's almost like, let's say that somebody saw somebody that's really in shape and they wanted a six pack, right? I want to get in shape. I want to get a six pack. Then they actually ask the person, well, this is what I eat. This is how many steps I take in a day. This is how much I work out. Once they have the context, they might be like, okay, great. I'm willing to do it. Or I'm just cool with the flat stomach, bro. I don't need all that, right? So you got to give people, if you've made it to a certain threshold and you do truly care about helping people understand how they can get there, you have to give them the context so they can make an informed decision on if it's the path for them. Because it could go the other way, right? It's like they could see it and they start pursuing that path. And it's just like, if I would have known, I would have never did this. Or it's like, now that I know exactly what I got to do, I'm going to lock in and I'm going to get it done. But when you don't have that context, you can't make an informed decision.
Yeah. What better way? We've been here for 6 days with Biz Boost Week. So much power. We had Tuesday, structure, automation, Wednesday, finance, funding. Thursday, we had leadership, communication, networking. Friday, health and wellness, relationships. And then Saturday, here we are. What better way to close it out than what George Acheampong just dropped on us? So phenomenal. We're so grateful to have you here.
Thank you,
You blessed so many people, and we'll bless many more on the replay. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you all. Until next time, we'll see you at the top.
Peace.